I'm Chris from Play Comics, a show where we look at video games based on comic properties and how well they stick to that source material, a part of the Gonna Geek Network, just like the show you're checking out now. Shows on the network are individually owned, and opinions expressed may not reflect others. Find other astonishingly geeky shows at GonnaGeekNetwork.com.
Dr. Tom.
Are you telling me you built a time machine?
There is no school.
These aren't the droids you're looking for.
Get away from her, you bitch!
Well, let me finish them, please.
I only have one rule. Everyone fights, no one quits.
Welcome to the final episode of 2019 of the Sci-Fi Sunday version 2.0 podcast. I'm your host, David Dawson. Joining me for this final episode, which we actually did manage to get in today, is my sister,
Theresa Dawson,
and our buddy,
Mike Peterson.
And we are going to do a little recap of the first season of The Mandalorian on Disney Plus. Right after this. If you're enjoying the podcast here at Sci-Fi Sunday, please check out the Gonna Geek Network, of which we are a proud part, at GonnaGeek.com. You'll find a whole wealth of incredibly geeky podcasts similar to ours, covering topics like Doctor Who and gaming and just general nerdiness, including how to make your own podcast. So go check it out at GonnaGeek.com. And now the three of us are going to get into not quite as deep a dive as we did on Rise of Skywalker last night. That was a marathon 3.5 hour long podcast. Kudos to both of you for sitting through it with me.
Oh, dude, anytime.
And kudos to any of our listeners who actually listen to the whole thing. Like,
Which you should.
You should always listen to every episode of Sci-Fi Sunday.
It might take you, a week, bits and pieces, but you'll get there.
Yeah, it's the perfect traffic companion. That's what I say.
This is the way.
This is the way.
I have spoken.
So The Mandalorian launched the Disney Plus streaming service earlier this year. It was highly anticipated. And it was kind of, well, let's face it, Star Wars has been a divided fandom for a few years, right?
Correct.
And going into The Mandalorian, it's the first kind of major Star Wars property since the flop of Solo, if you want to call Solo a flop. But since the underperforming film hit the theater and a little bit ahead of The Rise of Skywalker hitting the theaters. So nobody really knew how fandom was going to take the first live action TV series of Star Wars of this modern era, which I think is what we'll call it. We'll call this the modern era, not the Lucas era. Hi, Sean.
Hi.
My nephew just came back from playing with his friends.
Yes. Hi, baby.
What you guys doing?
We're podcasting, dude.
Podcasting about The Mandalorian.
Okay. I'm not gonna be in here because I've only watched episode. I'm gonna be spoiled.
So anyway, so nobody really knew how fandom was going to take this series. There was a massive amount of hype for the Disney Plus launch, which they had some hiccups the first couple of days. Demand was kind of off the charts, really, for a startup streaming service.
Yep.
They said they were going to be prepared for anything, but even Disney wasn't quite prepared for what they actually got in terms of people trying to log on. So there were log on issues and slow streams and stuff for like the first week. But I got to say, the whole service has stabilized. I've had a really good experience with it. Can already see that they've made some updates to the apps on the various platforms, and things are getting better and better. As
my main thing is I have buffering issues.
You're still having buffering issues?
Yep. But other than that, it's great.
Yeah, I haven't had any buffering issues for a long time. So, might just be your internet.
Did that fast? It's possible.
But all that aside, The Mandalorian dropped the morning of Disney Plus's launch, and unfortunately, we weren't all together So we were kind of watching it.
Bits and pieces.
We watched the premiere, but we were watching it from two different places.
Not together and whatnot. We did watch them on big screens, though,
Yes.
if I recall, in ballrooms where we were working.
But in two totally different states, right?
Yeah, I was in Texas.
I think we were in Long Beach, right?
Long Beach, yeah. So we posted photos of us watching on giant projection screens, which is fun. It was fun. I have to say, I was very much looking forward to the series as a fan of what Dave Filoni has been doing with the animated series for the last 10 or 15 years, right?
Yep.
Between the Clone Wars and then Star Wars Rebels. And I think Rebels is just some of the best Star Wars stories told. And I've seen a bit of Resistance. I haven't seen all of that series yet. But Filoni seems to be kind of the voice of Star Wars, really, of the modern era. Since Lucas finished his prequel trilogy, he was involved in the creation of the Clone Wars cartoon, but Dave Filoni really ran that show. And I think as it went along, he and his team started really developing the greater universe of Star Wars beyond George Lucas's original vision of of the Skywalker story, right? And I've always loved kind of how expansive these stories have gotten in that peripheral part of the universe. So I was excited to see what Filoni was going to be doing in live action. This Mandalorian being the first live action thing that he's done. He also directed 2 of the episodes. First time he's directed as well. Directed live action. And then of course Jon Favreau. Who's like your god.
He can do no wrong by me.
Yeah, he's your film, that's your film.
My favorite director, everything.
Yep. Favreau is on a streak, man. That's pretty impressive. Starting really with Iron Man.
Yep.
He's got his pulse on modern filmmaking, modern storytelling, and the things that audiences like to see and like to hear. Within these kind of larger comic book and Star Wars type universes. And it was cool to see these two guys paired together.
Yeah. Because they had done work together with a little bit of end of Clone Wars, but mostly when they got into Rebels a little bit, they started to do some more work together.
Yeah. Now, it's my understanding from one of the Celebration panels that Favreau pitched this idea to Kathleen Kennedy, and it was Kathleen Kennedy who said Dave should do this with him. So all the negativity Kathleen Kennedy gets right now from the kind of toxic side of fandom, she does make good decisions as well. And I think the pairing of these two to do this series together was something that was genius. Obviously Favreau knows what he's doing, but I really, it's in my heart and soul right now that if there is a successor to Lucas in Star Wars and Star Wars storytelling, it is Dave Filoni.
Agreed.
The guy who came up under Lucas's tutelage to do so.
Yep.
Yeah.
Right. So my hope going forward is that Dave Filoni is more involved beyond the animated stuff and becomes more and more involved in the overall arc of storytelling in the Star Wars universe.
Yeah, Favreau's a great director. He's a good writer. I mean, he wrote a lot of this. So, yeah, having him come in, but also, I mean, Favreau also wants to direct his own stuff too. So
yeah. And Filoni's been living and breathing Star Wars for almost 2 decades.
Exactly.
So,
Filoni could kind of become what Feige.
Yeah, and I think that's what Star Wars needs.
I think Star Wars, because Kathleen Kennedy
is an executive. She's she's a producer.
Yeah.
But she was always like Spielberg's producer and George Lucas's producer, and she can help creative people put together what they need to make movies, I think.
Yeah.
But she's not, I don't think she's necessarily the creative person herself, right? She doesn't drive creativity. She provides the resources for creative people to do stuff. And within the Star Wars universe, I think it's really important to have the one producer person who can give a cohesive voice to all of it. And I think that's Dave Filoni. I think Dave Filoni is the one who can do that.
Yep.
Obviously, there'd be other people I mean, a lot of us are really versed in Star Wars, but nobody's as versed in it as Filoni. He's been creating the modern lore in Star Wars for the last 20 years.
Right.
So. Right out the gate, I loved the look of this show. It had that kind of worn out, the lived in, worn universe feel of the original trilogy. And this being on the heels of Return of the Jedi, really, that makes a lot of sense. But there's so many great visuals in this show. It's really stunning what they've done on a TV budget.
It reminded me of Rogue One more than any other one. That kind of washed out kind of look, but that, yeah, same thing. You're in a war-torn world, and it's very gritty and Western. Obviously, this is very Western feel.
Well, and the music in this is very much a Western. Reading people's comments about the series online over the last couple months, the one thing I've seen more complaints about on the show than anything is the music. It seems to be the one thing that's the most divisive. Because it's not a John Williams score.
No,
and doesn't refer to those themes really hardly ever.
Yeah.
It's its own thing, which the whole show really kind of is its own thing. And personally, I really liked it. I like that it's a different flavor, especially if the idea that the Skywalker saga is over.
You don't want anything relating.
You don't want those themes carrying over, right? Like it's time to move Star Wars beyond those limitations and let it be new things, which I think this shows a great step forward in that.
Yeah, there's obviously a really fun Mandalorian theme that plays throughout each episode. But other than that, it's just normal tones and stuff you get with most shows. And I thought it was great.
Yeah. And the composer is the same guy who did the Black Panther score, right?
Right.
What's his name?
Ludwig.
We saw him at that Comic-Con.
Yes, we did.
Where he talked about how he did some free scores for Ryan Coogler? Can't remember. Coogler, the director of Black Panther. He talked about how he did some free scores for him when he was in college, right? Like you do the nice thing for the college kid who's trying to get his films done, and then flash forward a few years later and he's scoring Black Panther and he's scoring Creed and having these amazing feature films that he's become known for.
Right.
You never know as a creative what thing you do could lead down a path of being discovered. It was it was a really neat storyline to just hear when we went to that Comic-Con panel. Theresa, what's your favorite aspect of the show overall?
That's one, I thought it looked beautiful. Mm-hmm. Like I love the cinematography of it and stuff, but I love that it kind of felt like coming back to the Old West, but in whatever this futuristic space type is. So right. If we were in, space and gallivanting around and stuff like that, that's kind of what I feel like the Old West would be, So, but I love all the rules and all the, the codes to follow by,
that the Mandalorians follow.
The Mandalorians, the guilds have their own, even the IG droid, like, and even Quill, like everybody had a code. Like there was some form of something that they live by and they stick with it, So
we talked last night in the Rise of Skywalker about how much I liked the Festival of the Ancients, or Festival of the Ancestors, because it builds out visually, especially, but it builds out this idea of culture and history and a past, right? Yeah. And I think that's what these creeds and stuff are doing for you as well, is like it builds out the universe.
Yeah.
Like not everybody's New Republic, right? Like everybody comes from somewhere and they all have a background because
they all have a background and a way they do things and a way they choose. And like even with Quill's, background, he he earned his freedom and he earned his right, and then he was just never going to do certain things ever again, you know?
Right.
But it goes back to where sometimes people are forced into, you know, certain paths because of, you know, whatever. Like with him, you know, he was into servitude and stuff like that, but then earned his freedom. So I love those sorts of things, and I love how deep this was. You got to meet all sorts of different creatures and at least beings that were part of the Star Wars universe, you know, or, you know, at least creatures within that universe of what it was. So you kind of got to get a little backstory of some of these side beings and side characters of the big movie. So I really enjoyed that. That's probably, you know, and then of course my Baby Yoda.
We'll get it to Baby Yoda in a second. Mike, what was your kind of favorite thing about the series?
One, it's just a fun series. It's just a fun shoot 'em up series. But seeing The Mandalorian, and again, with you and I, especially with watching Rebels and knowing the history that all had in there, and then in the very end of the Clone Wars too, how expansive that is. And here's one Mandalorian that's still seemingly left over. You know, he has the covert, and people, you realize that there's way more of them that are underground and hiding. But I love that he is fallible. That he is hard and he'll push through anything. But especially those first 2 episodes, that guy gets beat around.
Yeah.
He's not a perfect warrior at all.
Yeah.
For how hyped the Mandalorians got, he gets his ass handed to him many a times.
Yeah.
But he still sees it through.
Right. Yeah. He's got perseverance for sure.
Yeah.
That aspect though of like he was improving as he went.
Yes.
And, you know, that's also one of the complaints that I've read from people online is that it feels like a video game. He's leveling up. Like, you know, he's got to achieve this to get his next piece of armor. He's got to achieve this to get his next weapon. He's got to achieve this to get his rocket pack, you know, like, and then that becomes very important to him achieving the next goal. You know, it's like there was a little bit of that kind of feel, and I can kind of agree with some of that criticism of it, that it does have that kind of video game leveling up storyline. But this is an origin story of this particular Mandalorian. Right. So everybody has their expectations again going into these sorts of things of what we're going to see. Right. And the kind of initial idea is like, oh, you know, it's a Boba Fett kind of story, you know, like, okay, well, Boba Fett was a chump. We've established that thoroughly on our podcast. Boba Fett was a chump. The Mandalorian here, little bit of a chump when he starts out, you know, and I think that was okay, you know, but there are some people who didn't want that. They wanted him to be like super powerful and top of his game right at the start. And
yeah, see, I
appreciate what they did because it does create a character. And what I loved about this season, and it is the first of at least two because they are working on another season. What I loved is it's like 7 episodes of character building, right? Developing who this guy is, what his backstory is, slowly doling it out, you know, and letting us kind of discover him through some trials and tribulations, through the people he experiences along the way and how they change his perspective of the universe that he lives in. And for me, I liked that kind of slower pace of storytelling. We talked about Rise of Skywalker being super fast, right? Well, that's what motion pictures are now. You got 2 hours, 2.5 hours to tell as much story as you can. So motion pictures move fast, super, super, super fast. This storyline is essentially one story that we would have gotten in a motion picture about this character, but spread out over like 3 hours worth of time.
Right.
Right. So there's time to breathe. The editing's a bit slower. The pace is a bit slower. It really allowed for a much more kind of nuanced introduction to who this guy is, which I really liked. I really liked that. And I think that's where I'm super excited about the idea of these Disney Plus shows for Star Wars as well as for Marvel, is the idea that they can do these kind of deeper character studies in the shows and then have big motion picture moments.
Mm-hmm.
Right. And Bob Iger did say that there is interest from Disney and Lucasfilm at looking at the characters they're doing in these series. And I imagine they have a slate of series that they haven't announced yet. But they're looking at how they can integrate the Disney Plus side of things with the motion picture side of things and kind of change up how they're doing the structuring for Star Wars overall. I think that's great, right? Like if we can be introduced to characters, get deeper backstories in series and then see them in big movies together, you know, where they come in and they do their parts within a larger story and stuff. I think that's a fantastic way to do these and tell these kind of large universe type stories.
Yeah, we talked about this with Game of Thrones, right? Where Game of Thrones would have not worked as a movie.
No.
Or a series of movies.
No. Not
at all. Now, there was talk, like, after, like, season, I want to say 3 or 4, about maybe a movie coming out. And that might have been okay, but I'm glad that them specifically just kept it as a series.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, like, once you have that base set up a little bit with deeper backstories, then sure, you could branch out. But yeah, there are certain things that just don't work in movies.
Yeah. Yeah, totally. Characters within this series. We were introduced to a boatload of new characters.
Yep.
And it kind of felt for a while like every episode was a new person to meet, new person to meet, new person to meet.
Yeah, that's what I thought it was going to be. It's like, oh, okay, so we don't get to keep this person. We get a new one. Got it.
We got to see Quill in the first 2 episodes.
Mm-hmm.
So I was like, oh, okay, he's going to be consistent. And then we didn't see him for a long time. I was like, okay, well, I guess we're done with Quill. And we got to meet Kara, and then, you know, he left that planet and she was gone. And it was just kind of like this revolving door of guest characters. And I was like, on one hand, I really enjoyed that. But I was happy to see a bunch of these characters brought back, for the finale here.
Well, I was very
kind of tying in the whole experience of season 1 into the moment that leads them into the second season.
Yeah. I was very surprised, with IG-11, who was a huge story, bounty hunter backstory, in the Star Wars universe, right?
Well, IG-88.
Or 88, sorry. But the IG units, right?
Right. And it was a huge part of the marketing.
Yeah.
Right.
Exactly. So when he's done after the first episode, which he's badass in that entire scene.
Yeah. And then he's gunned down. You're like, whoa.
I will self-destruct. No.
And I love the characterization of him as a droid. Taika Waititi voiced him.
Yep.
But voiced him very straightforward. Like I was wondering how Taika would approach the voice of that droid. Cause, you know, Taika's kind of animated.
It could have been anybody. It didn't really sound like him, obviously.
It didn't really have to be him.
No.
Yeah, it didn't. But I could tell it was him. They ran it through some processing, but you could, if you watch enough stuff with him, like you can tell it's Taika's voice. But, I liked how low key he kept the character.
Yep.
You know, like, I don't know. It was a cool choice. It's a strange droid to even imagine what the voice of that droid would be. I like that it kind of had a weird kind of almost echo chamber quality to it, because you look at that kind of weird tin can head and it kind of makes sense. Like if he's got a speaker processor buried deep inside the skull of that thing somewhere, it would have kind of weird reverbish metallic sound to it. I really dug what they did with him. And then the twist of bringing that character back at the end, reprogrammed by Quill to be what he became, was, I thought, brilliant.
And out of all the characters, I think that the Mandalorian, the arcs change, I think IG's in his is probably the most significant.
Yeah. Yeah. The fact that he came to trust IG at the end.
Yep.
And really
just like
care about him.
Yep. Exactly.
It's a huge change for that character. It was very cool. We also got introduced to Cara Dune.
Gina Carano.
Yeah, she's great. She is great in this.
Yes.
I remember her from, was it Fast and Furious? And she's in one of those movies, and
Deadpool.
But she really stands out in this the season of this show. She's in 3 episodes, which is almost half, really.
Right.
Yeah. But she is so good in this. I mean, really surprised me how good she is. She brings a lot of soul to Kara. She brings a lot of like carried grief and guilt and pain as a former warrior,
She's the bridge between Star Wars that we know and this.
Yeah.
Being in Endor, shock trooper.
Yeah. Yeah. You're right. She's the bridge to the Star Wars we know to this storyline here, but she doesn't dwell on those stories.
No.
They talk enough to go, oh, okay, I know she's been through some shit.
Yep.
And I know what shit she's been through, so that's
Right.
cool. And then the revelation that she's also of Alderaanian descent.
Descent.
She's one of Leia's people who lost their freaking planet to the Death Star. No wonder she hates the Imperials so much, like very cool. And again, they didn't tell you that right away. You just got to watch how much she doesn't like the Imperials, and even doesn't want to leave that planet to go help the Mandalorian out until he says, you'll get to kill a bunch of imps. And then she's like, I'm in, right? Like anything to kill an Imperial, she's going to go. Totally makes sense at the end of the season. You're like, oh, that's why, but they don't dwell on that. They let the lore of Star Wars kind of sit on it. They drop the nugget for the people who know, and it's good. And if you don't know, she's just a person who doesn't like the Imperials,
I was interested to see what they were going to do with her character, especially after the Force choke. If she was some double agent or not.
Right.
But they didn't, and it was good. Yeah. I like what they kept her story like this.
They went back to Tatooine at one point, and we got to see the cantina again, which had changed a lot.
Yep.
A lot of droids in the cantina now. I liked the whole sequence on Tatooine with the stormtrooper helmets on the pikes and, coated in dried blood and stuff. And, just a lot of imagery, really great imagery of like what the universe looks like after the Empire's fallen. It was really cool. And the lady in the hangar bay, I can't remember the character.
Oh yeah.
She was so great. So funny. And how fun was it to see some pit droids too, right?
Right.
The one character that I thought was not used well, right? I would have expected to have been used more was Ming Na's character. Also part of the Tatooine storyline. She just kind of came and went.
Yep. It wasn't long.
And it was kind of a big deal when they finally let people know that she was going to be on the show. I would have thought we'd have seen more of her over time than just a flash in the pan and a quick
I totally
death.
forgot she was in it.
Well, her face was covered up for a big portion of her performance. And then, we get one fight sequence, one kind of discussion, by some speeder bikes, and then she's killed. It was like super quick, very fast cameo, but always good to see Ming Na in anything. Now she's like got the triumvirate of Disney performances, right? She's been a Disney princess as Mulan.
Yep.
She's been in the Marvel universe with Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. and now she's in the Star Wars universe. So she's checking all the boxes off on the Disney side of things. Has she appeared in a Pixar thing yet? I think that's the only thing left for her to do. The one episode that I feel maybe was the most like filler of any of them was the prison ship episode.
Yeah. I like the visuals in that one, especially with the flickering lights, and it felt very alien esque, you know, where you're stuck on a prison ship with aliens and other stuff. But you know, you get a little backstory with obviously the person that they're trying to free has some beef with Mando, and the entire old gang. But yeah,
I mean, I get the idea that it was maybe intended to show that Mando didn't always have the best morals.
Yeah.
You know, like I think that's what the purpose of that episode was like.
I think this is also where he's starting to get a little bit better and more skilled by himself.
Yeah, that's true, because he does handle himself pretty well through that whole episode. But you know, filler or not, what it is loaded with is a lot of cameos that you maybe don't recognize. So the Twi'lek in that episode is the same actress who plays Nymphadora Tonks in the Harry Potter films.
Yep.
The really big guy in that is also the voice of Rex on the Clone Wars and Rebels.
Oh.
He's the prison guard in like Green Mile and Shawshank Redemption. And,
he was in Batman Begins.
Yeah, I can't remember his name right now.
Mark Boone.
And then the guy in the blue suit in the control room on the prison ship is the guy who voiced Anakin Skywalker in the Clone Wars cartoons. Which is kind of cool too. And then the X-Wing pilots at the end that blow up that station are also Dave Filoni, Deborah Chow, the female director of Episode 3,
right?
Who's going to be directing the Obi-Wan Kenobi series. And then what's his name? Mark Fukuyama, who directed that episode as well. The three of them all cameo.
Cool.
Oh, nice.
As the X-Wing pilots. So it was also Dave Filoni's first time appearing on screen as an actor, I think. Which is kind of neat. Overall, I really dug the tone of the show. The visual effects were, out for a television show. Are you kidding me?
Yeah, that's awesome.
They were totally on par with what we're seeing in the big screen for Star Wars. It has me super excited about season 2, where they're going to go with it. I know they did this show on like $100 million budget for the 8 episodes. To give you, that sounds like a lot of money, but to give you some comparison, if you look at Apple TV, and the series that they've recently dropped, I know that
the one with Jason Momoa, that one, or
that's C, which is there. I don't know what the budget was for that. But the Jennifer Aniston, Reese Witherspoon show, the morning show, excellent show, by the way, if you haven't seen it. They had $150 million budget for that show.
Oh, wow.
For a similar number of episodes, without all the visual effects and stuff. So what Filoni and Favreau were able to do on this show with the budget they had is really outstanding. So I just, as filmmakers, I find that fascinating to talk about and think about. So, I liked how through most of this season, they tried to avoid making the Mandalorian story tied into the larger Star Wars universe that we're familiar with overall. It all felt like very standalone, his own story, whatever. But boy, they took a turn here at the
last episode.
Tying it into really the animated series, which to our discussion about modern Star Wars, the kind of Dave Filoni era of the animated series and stuff, this really is going to push season 2 much more into the lore of what we've learned in the Clone Wars cartoons and in Star Wars Rebels of the Mandalorian history and everything. that dark saber sequence just blew my mind. I couldn't believe they actually went there. I'm happy they went there, but
as soon as I saw the something cutting through the tie, and I saw exactly.
I heard you say it. I was like, gosh.
Oh my God, they did it. The black saber. Ah, I was freaking out.
Yeah. But Teresa's not familiar with any of that. So
Nope.
How did that scene play out for you, T?
I was confused.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, to be perfectly honest, I had I was like, where the hell did that thing come from?
Right.
I mean, like, and why does
it, did it pique your interest though? Did it make you go, oh, I want to know what that is all about and I hope they talk about it in season 2? Or is it just a weird thing that doesn't much ring with you? Cause I'm asking because it's a curiosity about the depth of Star Wars lore and how it sits with people who aren't familiar with it.
So, I mean, yes and no. It was weird. And for me, kind of felt out of place. It felt out of place. So I was kind of like, okay, well, where'd that come from? And why did we go there? Like, I don't, so I'm kind of like, really, why do we have a lightsaber of some sort
for a show that avoided
Mm-hmm.
anything having to do with Jedi really for the whole season?
Yeah. So I didn't actually like it.
Okay, that's fair.
But
that's why I asked.
But I figure I'm like, well, I'm sure they'll explain whatever it is or what. But I was kind of bummed. Like I liked that what this was had nothing to do. Like there were no Jedi things happening.
Yeah. Technically speaking, the Darksaber's not a Jedi thing.
Right.
It's a Mandalorian thing. So
no, and I understand,
it's still within all that.
But I mean, like I understand with Baby Yoda and the Force and all that, I'm like, okay, but just I don't know what it is. It looks like a lightsaber.
Mm-hmm.
So then you're like, okay, why is there a lightsaber? Okay, great. So is he some sort of Sith now? So then you're like, well, but this is so it was more confusing than anything.
Okay, that's totally fair. That's why I asked.
I mean, you don't have to. The way I know, but the way he's dressed, like the way he's dressed and everything. I mean, he's dressed very similar to like a Vader outfit without the helmet, in my opinion. You know, and then so busting out a black lightsaber, or whatever. And just from my visual knowledge of what I see, and I'm just like, okay, so.
It's interesting that you think he looks like Darth Vader because I thought watching it that he looked more like he adopted stormtrooper armor in a Mandalorian style because he was wearing patches of like stormtrooper armor in black, not white.
Sure. Yeah.
And with the whole discussion about him being there on Mandalore during the purge and whatnot, like leads me to believe that that's what they were going for. I don't think they were going so much for the Darth Vader look. But again, I know a lot of that lore and that background.
Well, I mean, I definitely got that
better,
when but when I first saw him before the Mandalorian explained where he knew Moff and stuff from, then I'm like, okay, I can kind of see maybe it's of the style of a Mandalorian pieces, but he just went all black.
Right.
Okay, but he went all black. Like in Star Wars, in Star Wars, the ones who go all black.
Yeah, but that's that classic Western deal too, where the good guys always wear white and the bad guys always wear black, like
absolutely.
Mando's in straight up polished steel, essentially white.
Yeah.
He's his opposite in black, which is what I was getting in.
But but my first thought of the outfit, I was like, okay, but then I'm like, okay, so maybe it's Mandalorian, but then, the pose at the end with the saber and stuff. And all I can think of in my head is like, a lot of people are going to be confused.
Yeah. Which I totally get.
Yeah.
And again, why I asked the question, because you're the one of us who doesn't have any of that kind of knowledge of the history of the Mandalorian people that those of us who watch the cartoons do.
Right.
Yeah, so interesting. What I wonder is, does the introduction of the Darksaber at the end of this show inspire these kinds of discussions with a lot of the people watching the series
to go back and watch?
And then guys like me and Mike encouraging those who haven't watched the animated series to now go watch the animated series to learn more of those storylines.
Which is now available on Disney Plus.
Which is now available on Disney Plus. And you've got time to catch up before season 2.
Nope, I won't make it.
But we should like make a definitive viewer's guide of like the important episodes of Clone Wars and Rebels to watch, so you don't feel lost in as the universe expands.
Yes.
But no, it's a valid concern that tying in the deeper lore of these kind of lesser watched series could be off-putting to people who don't want to invest in watching the cartoons.
Yeah.
Which, some people just have a thing. They don't want to watch cartoons. That's really unfortunate for them, because some of the best Star Wars storytelling is in the cartoons.
Or I just, like me, who just doesn't have the time.
Yeah. And very much if people liked The Mandalorian, they really should watch Clone Wars and Star Wars Rebels, because that is Dave Filoni leading those stories.
Yep.
And it's very much in the style of The Mandalorian, a lot of it. But I
love that those,
some people won't.
I love that those, they're obviously, you have Anakin and you have Obi in the center of it, but it is way more.
There are whole episodes of Clone Wars that don't see either of them.
Right. But it is way more on Ahsoka, the clones, their own personalities.
Lots of story on the clones.
And then you have
There's a whole 3-episode arc on younglings.
Yep.
Like learning to build their lightsabers. And then I think there's a whole episode that's just about droids too.
But then there's a series, a whole season basically on Mandalore.
Mm-hmm.
And later with Obi. And then it carries on later on into Rebels.
Yeah. Mandalore plays a huge part in the Rebels storyline.
Yep.
So, Baby Yoda. Let's talk about Baby Yoda.
What a reveal that was.
Brilliant reveal. Not a word of Baby Yoda in any marketing, in anything leading up to the show.
Talk about being able to keep something secret.
I had read 1 or 2 rumors that something about Yoda's race may show up in the series. That was all the more that I saw. Nothing about a Baby Yoda. Right? Nothing about it being so central to the entire season. Absolutely bonkers that they kept that quiet.
Yeah.
Right?
It's so funny because Favreau came out with a response after episode 1 came out. Or even after, I think it was episode 2, when you really get to see a little more what the child can do.
Mm-hmm.
He's like, because everyone was like, dude, you could have made so much money, because we are going into holiday season.
Yeah,
if you had toys and all that, like, he's like, I didn't want to reveal this at all.
And Disney agreed with him, and Lucasfilm agreed with him, and went along with his desire there. And I gotta say this, for all the people who dislike Disney and say they're just about making toys and money off of, creating characters they can make toys out of, they didn't do that here. They respected the artist's desire and kept it quiet. I mean, the word of mouth that hit the street after that first episode dropped about the big thing at the end of the show, and people were pretty respectful about not dropping it right away. They waited about a day,
before the memes started.
They wanted to give everybody about 36 hours to talk about it. And then the memes started to drop, but it was and still is a viral sensation, Baby Yoda, like crazy. Every episode there's a new animated GIF. And
Yep.
like, the bone broth one's my favorite, where he's just standing there drinking the bone broth.
Oh yeah.
But they withheld creating toys to the point
You
where
still won't have any till like May.
Yeah, it's going to be May before any really official Baby Yoda.
They finally in this last week or so, did Baby Yoda clothing merchandise show up at the Disney parks,
right?
The Disney theme parks, you know,
and they had like a cafe press level setup of like shirts about 3 weeks ago. Get your Baby Yoda merchandise, and it was just like the concept art.
It's either concept art or it was a screenshot.
It was like concept art and a screenshot, like just put onto a shirt. Like, this is the best we can do in short notice, guys. Like, we didn't have time to prep for this because
no one knew.
No one in marketing knew about this character. Like, because the production team kept it completely to themselves. That to me is so impressive, and so it's a testament to what Disney really represents. Disney is entertainment first, right? Toys and stuff are second, right? And yes, they make a boatload of money on toys and stuff. But when the artist says we don't want to make toys right away because that's what gives away the secrets,
right?
How
many we all character reveals movies all the time?
Yeah, because Force Friday was like a month and a half before the movies drop, and a bunch of the toys go out, you know, because they're trying to make the Christmas rush, and I get that.
Well, and like,
but it oftentimes reveals a lot about the movie.
Well, but that was also like, I think even with Force Awakens, they didn't have a lot of the Rey figures. But I also think some of that was also because with the trailers that you got for the beginning of all that, I mean, who was going to be the main person of the new Star Wars, you know, and stuff like that. So,
well, yeah, early on, those Force Awakens trailers, I mean, the final shots usually were of Finn holding the lightsaber.
Yeah.
So we didn't know who was going to really become the Force sensitive character going forward on that.
But I mean, let's be honest. Disney also knows that they'll make a crap ton long term off of Baby Yoda stuff. Yeah. Baby Yoda stuff is going to but there is a tendency on large corporations' parts to want to jump on top of momentum. And there was definitely going to be momentum going into Christmas. The restraint they showed to not let that reveal drop before it was meant to, really outstanding. Absolutely.
I commend Disney for the restraint.
And I think what's going to happen too is when most of this merchandise comes out, it's going to be the midway mark between when this season ends and the new season begins.
Yeah, because the second season's supposed to drop a fall 2020. Mm-hmm. So for this stuff to drop in the May, June
merchandise
timeframe,
is supposed to start kicking off end of February and into May. So I mean,
it's not a bad bit of timing to kind of remind people in the months leading up to Mandalorian season 2, that
especially stuff actually drops like on May the 4th.
Right? Yeah, that would be good timing. But it also means that the Baby Yoda stuff will be in all the theme parks
during the
heaviest time, you know. So it becomes really more about marketing for season 2 of Mandalorian, rather than running on the power of
because as of you know, this first season was learning about the Mandalorian and him, and now you're just getting now we're gonna
finally learn more about Yoda's race.
And explore what that is. So, yeah, I mean, you just kind of expect there's going to be a whole lot of Baby Yoda, and so that's a good way to push the next season.
Well, and I think we're also going to, I'm hoping with the introduction of the Darksaber, we'll see what happened to Mandalore, like through flashbacks and whatnot.
Right.
And really get the fill in on the Purge and what happened there, because that all happened after Star Wars Rebels. So,
Now, I did get one little Baby Yoda merchant. I got my Baby Yoda phone case. So they have a couple things.
I snapped a photo driving today. Somebody had
saw
a
that.
baby on board sticker, and it was Baby Yoda. But
Certain
no,
things they can make real fast.
I got to give John Favreau and Dave Filoni credit. They launched Disney Plus, and they launched it with a bang. And I'm super excited to see where Star Wars is going.
Baby Yoda, just question. Baby Yoda was all CG, right?
No,
he's puppet.
Is he puppet?
He's a puppet.
I couldn't remember.
Except for some scenes,
Except for like
where
the hair and stuff, right?
except for some scenes where he's walking.
But it's a little bit of that mixture too, right?
Probably.
Yeah. Right. It was
Like what they did on Dark Crystal. Where
Yeah.
It's all puppetry, but they use digital
They
to
use
enhance.
some digital to enhance a little in the eyes to make the hair on his
because
head
you can
move
only
and
manipulate
stuff.
you can only manipulate that small a puppet so much.
Right. So like to get the translucence through the ears and a little bit more and stuff like that. So, but I thought it was a beautiful
puppet.
puppet.
Werner Herzog, who plays the client. He's the one who hires.
With the heavy German accent.
Yes, he's the one who hires the bounty. Right, he's the one who wants to pay off.
Mm-hmm.
He's a well-known director. He came out because originally they were going to do the puppet, they were going to do it in CG. But
They were shooting the scenes both ways, with a puppet and then doing it again without a puppet. And he's like, "Why are we doing this without the puppet?"
he literally
Like,
said,
well, just in case. And he goes,
"You'll
"No,
be cowards."
You cowards! You don't let this creature not be on film." Like everybody said, he was so enamored with the puppet, it was like he forgot it was a puppet a lot of the time. And he's gone on record about how much he loves that little character.
Yeah. Well, and it's I saw one of the best memes. Right, it was like cutest characters in Star Wars universe. Starts with Ewoks, then it's the Porgs, and then it's Baby Yoda. Beer, hold you will.
Yeah, hold my beer, you will.
Hold my beer, you will.
Yeah. So yeah, I'm looking forward to season 2. Do you know when the Cassian Andor series is supposed to drop?
I do not. I could bet you I could look it up real quick.
Now that's
But they- 'cause if-
the
It's
from
Diego
Rogue One,
Luna's
right?
character from Rogue One. Him and Alan Tudyk are both back to play their characters.
K2SO.
K2SO. Yeah, I'm really looking forward to that series because I think there's a lot of potential there to see the kind of darker side of being, a rebel spy.
Yeah.
Which they gave you a little taste of in Rogue One.
Yeah. Some of the things we've had to do sort of stuff.
Yeah. I think that's a really interesting aspect of the universe to tell.
Yeah.
And then from what I've been reading and seeing around, the Kenobi series is going to go into production in the
Next
spring.
year. Yeah.
Yeah. So
I'm so excited.
we'll probably see that drop in spring 2021. Yeah. So
I'm sure nobody is as excited as Ewan McGregor, though.
Right?
I mean, that man has had to keep that secret
4 years.
4 years.
4 years. He's
4
keeping that
years. I have seen some clips of people editing together millions of interviews he's given over the last 4 years because everybody always asked.
Yeah. Well, I love, he went on, I think it was Jimmy Kimmel and he was saying, no, it was like, for 4 years, I've had to tell people, yeah, and I've talked to them, if they're interested, I'm available. I'm here.
Right, yeah.
He's like, it was starting to sound like I was fishing for a job.
Yeah, I know. He's like that. Yeah, that I was really desperate. He's like, I started to sound like I was desperate for a job, or I was desperate to just be in, like, oh my gosh, I need to be in Star Wars again.
Cassian goes into production next year.
Okay.
So probably 21.
Both of those shows are going into production next year. Okay. So it's funny because when Ewan McGregor came on stage and made the announcement, he did it by coming up to Kathleen Kennedy and saying, ask me if I'm coming back to be Obi-Wan Kenobi.
Yeah.
Ask me if I'm coming back. She goes, okay, are you going to come back and play Obi-Wan Kenobi? He's like, yes!
Yes, 4 years!
Now, I know a lot of people were disappointed, like they wanted to come out and say, hello there, like do some Obi-Wan thing, I love that.
but
That was his personal desire, was to have somebody ask him the question in public.
And he could say yes.
And he could just say yes. And once he started explaining that story, on the talk circuit and stuff, it's like, okay, that makes sense why that's how he wanted the introduction done. Because for him, it's been 4 years of people asking him every time I've seen him in an interview for any movie he's been in. He's on a red carpet. He's on a nighttime talk show, like whatever. Everybody always asks him about Star Wars is back. When are you coming back as Kenobi? And he's always like, well, I don't know. So, his own personal experience, it just gotta be, he was super tired of the question being asked and not being able to say it. So
with how well this series went.
Yeah,
I'm super excited for Obi.
Right. But that's what it is, though, is this series, the Mandalorian series, was kicking off and it was going to give us the taste of what we're hoping the Star Wars series will be on Disney Plus. And to my personal opinion, Marvel series too.
Yeah.
So, because I think those are both very big, large, deep franchises. And
with a lot of expectations.
With a whole lot of expectations and a whole lot of, big movies. So this is to what's going to kick it off. And if this is the type of quality we're expecting to get, I'm even more so excited.
Well, it was interesting that, with all that Disney brings to the table, then you also have Marvel and Star Wars. Mandalorian was their big pitch for Disney Plus. All over the marketing. It's all the posters. It was all the Mandalorian.
Yep.
Which is it's interesting because they could have gone any different direction with this, but they chose this in this Star Wars expanded universe. And that was their gamble, and it paid
in the middle
off.
of a time where Star Wars fandom seemed to be turning very sour to Disney. I found it very interesting that was their go-to to launch Disney Plus with was a Star Wars TV series. Like, how much more risky a start can you start with?
Well, it's also in the same year that they opened up Galaxy's Edge.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
at both parks and stuff. So
here's an update about
a big Star Wars push. Here's
an update about Galaxy's Edge and Disneyland in general. Everybody made a big stink about the attendance being down over the summer, and Star Wars fans aren't coming to Galaxy's Edge or whatever. This entire Christmas holiday season, they've had to shut down ticket sales at Disneyland by like 10 a.m. every morning.
Yeah.
Wow.
It's full.
Yep.
So, I think what we talked about, last summer, that a lot of people who make their summertime plans made the decision not to go because they expected crowds to be insane. Flash forward to the next holiday run, the place is packed.
I also think that some of those people too are going to wait for next summer.
Because Rise of the Resistance will be open as well. Which Mikey's already ridden.
Marvel
and the Avengers campus will be open as well.
Will be open as well.
Exactly.
So if I was a
family member trying to figure out how to spend my dollars, and I'd be looking at all
this, I go, sorry everyone, we're going to wait one more year.
Yeah.
And we're going to go next summer. Next summer, I think, is going to be insane. I got to enjoy the summer.
It was a great summer.
And those of us who are annual pass holders loved that we got to enjoy what we got to enjoy.
Yeah.
But it's just going to get worse. It is going to get worse. And actually, the fall got worse.
Well,
because we went some in the fall too, again, and it got busy again. And I think people are like, oh, we're just going to go.
But I went with the nephews a couple weeks ago on the last day before blackouts, which is always packed. And even that night, like, the lines weren't terrible. And I think the math that I was reading from the Orange County Register about the fact that Galaxy's Edge has expanded the size of the park, but not necessarily equaled an expansion of overall allowed attendance because of fire codes.
Yeah.
Even though they'll sell out, the park won't feel as crowded as it used to.
Exactly. Because of the amount of space that was given doesn't mean it's an equal amount of attendance that the fire code is allowing in.
Yeah. Because there's minimal exits out of Galaxy's Edge.
Yeah. There's not a whole lot of place to go.
This is like two big doors out the back and then 3 narrow pathways back to Rivers of America.
Right.
So I don't know how much more they were able to actually increase the overall attendance allowed in the park, just because they added all that space, which means overall, even on a completely sold out day, the park won't feel as packed as it did a year ago.
Yeah.
On a completely
I will say this. Comparing Hollywood Studios, Walt Disney World, to Disneyland, exact same mirror, exact same layout, Galaxy's Edge.
Very, very close to exactly the same.
But Disney World, which has more land overall, because you're trying to cram everything into Anaheim, right? Just felt a little more compact and actually constricted closer together.
Disney World.
Disney World felt small?
Yeah.
Really?
Uh-huh.
Yeah, that was the first thing Mikey said to me. I said, how's Galaxy Edge? He goes, it's smaller. I go, what do you mean it's smaller?
Do you suppose they made the buildings a little bigger? Like the droid factory shop and whatnot. Do you think those are maybe slightly larger so the walkways are smaller?
No, I think everything, as far as the buildings, everything, that stuff's the same. But I think it's the area between. Like the walkways and stuff like that. Everything's a little closer, slightly packed together.
Weird.
Yeah.
Not normal for a Disney World build.
No.
That's what I said. I was like,
I'm like, they
Normally
have
go
this
bigger,
land.
you know?
And I'm like, weird.
Yeah, there's very subtle differences between the two parks, and a lot of people online are calling them Batu West and Batu East. Very subtle differences, like the spaceship crash that DJ Rex was in, that created DJ Rex, where it's placed outside of the droid shop is slightly different between the two parks.
Okay.
Just little things like that
Yeah.
are, it's like 20 feet different.
Yeah.
And that's what I'm talking about. Like,
Tiny
it's
little
just enough to go, huh.
It feels similar, but not quite right.
But yeah, I walked to the park. I walked through and I'm guiding my family through. I know exactly where everything is. Never being there, but I know exactly where every stuff is.
How did your family enjoy it? Because they're like, your sister is only like a recent Star Wars convert, right?
Yes. Most of them, not the biggest Star Wars fans. They're Harry Potter. They're the rest of the Disney stuff. So like my stepsister couldn't care for it at all. That was a fun experience, but meh.
Yeah.
Jeff, my sister's fiance, is the Marvel and Star Wars geek, and I enjoy the hell out of walking that man through, and experiencing everything.
There's nothing like bringing a Star Wars fan to see that Millennium Falcon. That is the best experience, walking somebody who you know is a huge Star Wars fan, taking them around that turn and then watching their face.
Yep.
As they gaze upon the beauty of this Falcon.
Yeah.
So much
absolutely awesome. My mom enjoyed it because she's been a huge amusement park. She's worked for Florida, for years.
Right.
Her favorite thing is Avatar and all the
Right.
land that is. But she appreciated absolutely everything that went into Star Wars.
Yeah.
And she loved the both rides. Although her and John, couple others that were like the engineers and a couple other stuff on Smuggler's Run, just had no idea what they were doing. And they were just like, it wasn't as fun for them, honestly.
Right.
But for everyone else, it's like, oh my God, I'm flying the Falcon. It's like, my sister she enjoyed it, but she was a pilot, and it's tough. The pilot is a very tough position if you've never done it.
Yeah. It's a wildly responsive joystick.
Yes, exactly. It's subtle movements. So it was fun, but yeah, it's walking the people through that actually are going to appreciate it. Like on January 17th, hopefully when we all go, we'll see. Hopefully we'll see you, Georgia.
Georgia don't happen.
Yeah. I'm going to love watching your guys' face. No matter what, the first time, if you're gone, when you come back, I'm going to be there for Rise. Cause it jaw dropped
Yeah, Steve Schwartz wrote it already.
Yeah.
Oh, cool.
He was on one of the test runs. And he won't say much about it other than best ride ever.
Yep.
So,
Yeah. All I got was a message of, yeah, you're going to love it. And I go, that's it. I mean, I don't, he's like, well, you don't like, I'm not asking for spoilers. I'm asking for,
Well, yeah, I asked, because I asked you, I text you, I'm like, okay, so how much do you want to know? She's like, everything.
yeah, I'm all just send it to me. This is different. I want to see the
it's a ride.
Like,
It's a whole different thing.
it's a whole different thing. I'm like, tell me all the ride, but yeah, Schwartz, like, he's like, it was great. You'll love it. I'm like, I'm not going to tell you because you don't like spoilers. I'm like, I already got video and stuff from Mike. Just,
It's all over the internet if you actually were to watch. Because Disney World, it's been open at Disney World.
yeah.
I've gone through the whole ride on YouTube already, but I can't wait to ride it.
I'm sure Sean will too. By the time we go, he'll have already watched the whole ride on YouTube.
Yeah, maybe. I don't know.
Oh no, when it comes to Disneyland, yeah, no, that he's been real big into watching these YouTube videos about
History of it.
history of the parks and like little Easter eggs all over the place and this and that.
Well, I'll have to show him the Imagineering.
Yeah. So like
documentary on Disney
we'll go on a ride and he'll go, okay, so when you turn this one corner, look for this thing. I'm like, what do you want? So yeah, that's his big thing right now.
That's,
Yeah, if you love the Disney parks, watch the Imagineering series on Disney Plus.
yeah, so good. Can't recommend.
Yeah,
that
I'm
enough.
like 3 episodes in or something. And it's
so
really
well
good.
done.
Yeah.
Yeah. So okay, guys. Well,
We jumped all over the place.
yeah, all over the place, but that's okay. Overall, I think we really enjoyed The Mandalorian.
Loved
Loved
it.
it.
And we're looking forward to season 2. And I think we're all excited to see where Star Wars goes from here now
Yeah,
that it's
and so far
kind
this
of cut
Disney
the
Plus,
bonds of Skywalker storytelling.
Disney
right?
Plus has become completely worth all of it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
So
okay.
Yay.
Well, have a happy New Year, you guys.
hey, we did it. We squeezed it in.
Have a happy New Year to everybody who listens to the show. This is our 22nd episode
Of 2.0?
of 2.0, which we only launched back in May. So we've done a lot of episodes. And over on the Intellectual, we did about 24 episodes this year. So we've been busy doing podcasts.
You talk a lot.
Awesome.
I do talk a lot.
Very cool.
Good thing I like to hear my own voice. Again, if you want to check out our other podcast, The Intellectual, you can do that at ixe.us. And please make sure you check out gonnageek.com for other incredibly geeky podcasts like our own. There's a wealth of content there. Make sure you go check it out. And by all means, check out the Imagineering docuseries on Disney Plus. Like, you won't regret it. Until next year, I've been David Dawson.
I'm Theresa Dawson.
Mike Peterson.
And we will see you all after fireworks and stuff. Woohoo! Happy New Year.
Happy
Bye.
New Year.